Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Legality. I'm your host, Richard Hoeg, managing member of the Hoeg Law business law firm of Northville, Michigan. And wow, Ubisoft's had quite the year, haven't they? On your screen right now, you see a concept art shot for Watch Dogs Legion, which is their big new Watch Dogs product that comes out this week. And this video is actually about a story that originated now, I think, in Eurogamer about some significant issues they are having even with the release state of that game. Now, before we dive into that issue, I did want to mention to all of you that follow Virtual Legality, maybe it's your first time here, that we are about 1 month away from the second anniversary of Virtual Legality, and we've had a lot of fun in this space, but we would love it if you are enjoying this content, if you love this channel, if you love this series, or maybe if you just like it, or maybe if you hate watch it, if you could tell people about it. We would love to get some more subscribers. Every little bit counts, so please tell folks that we're having these conversations. Stop by the shop. We keep putting in new items here, and for the second anniversary, you can expect some new stuff in here if you've already checked it out. And for that second anniversary, we'd like to put together a promotion. You get 10% off if you use VL348 in the store. So please tell folks about it. Wear the stuff. I love mine. And if you like Virtual Legality, we very, very much appreciate it. Now, with that little bit of sponsorship advertising out of the way, let's talk about Ubisoft. Now, as I mentioned, they've had quite the year. A quick search of just UBI in my own channel shows times when Ubisoft has been accused of exploiting things, when they've sued other people, when they've been accused of deceptively advertising, things like The Division, an entire big controversy about their new terms of service, about whether or not they own the intellectual property that you put into their games that we talked about in this very space and which is going to come up again as part of this video. Scandals, of course. Ubisoft has lost things like the creative director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which comes out a couple weeks after Watch Dogs Legion. They've had to change the name of their game Gods and Monsters, maybe because of an intellectual property complaint from Monster Energy Drink, of all folks. And it goes on and on and on. And unfortunately, it didn't really change today. Now, Watch Dogs Legion in and of itself has been a topic of conversation in this space. One of our earlier videos, you can see the old branding here with the neon green, number 74, talked about some complaints that artists and people that were creating music had with the fact that Ubisoft was using a company called HitRecord, which I believe is from somebody famous, or somebody famous backs it, that was taking and asking for certain amounts of music to be added to the game, certain amounts of art to be added to the game, and was maybe not giving a ton of money for that. And some folks accused them of exploiting these artists. We talked about that in that video. You can check that out. But suffice it to say that Watch Dogs Legion, even separate from Ubisoft, has also experienced controversy throughout its creation. Now, that controversy is a little bit elevated today, as Eurogamer reports the following. Watch Dogs Legion has a game-breaking bug on Xbox One X. Watch Dogs Legion, the third in Ubisoft's urban open world series, has a game-breaking bug at launch on Xbox One X that can make progress in its campaign impossible. Ubisoft is working to remedy the matter in a hotfix due at the end of this week. Now, we are pre-release, right? For the general public, the game has not been released yet, and so they can fix these kinds of things before that general release. Of course, it's not a great sign that for a locked down system like the Xbox One X, Ubisoft actually sent out to reviewers a copy that apparently has very significant issues. It's also worth noting here that this really isn't rumored. By the time Ubisoft is telling Eurogamer that they are working to remedy the matter, that they are aware of it, we can elevate this kind of article up from just, hey, maybe it's just happening on that one Xbox. Maybe there's nothing very significant here. It certainly seems, if Ubisoft is telling Eurogamer that they're working to fix it, that this is real, that this exists. The issue appears to be triggered around 6 to 8 hours into the main campaign during a mission called, I kid you not, 404, of course, the internet slang or code for file not found. Our reviewer reported the game freezes at a certain point, and the Xbox console warns it is about to shut down, as it's designed to because of overheating, which it duly does. It's an issue we've anecdotally heard has happened to multiple reviewers of the game on Xbox One X, which they note is Ubisoft's recommended platform for reviewers. Now, like most things in 2020, I have no doubt that Watch Dogs Legion is coming in hot. that they are working on fixes right up until the moment of release. They are working from home. They have all these problems that everybody else does. We just talked about them yesterday with CD Projekt Red actually delaying Cyberpunk 2077 for the fourth or fifth time, depending on how you count these various things. And they said that they delayed it because they were unhappy with their ability to get the day zero patch, that day one patch for consumers, up and running in a fashion that would allow the game to be played well. We talked in that video about the fact that that kind of talks about a problem for archival of the game. What was pressed on the disc isn't something that they are comfortable actually works, and that would be the same for something like Watch Dogs Legion here. What is on the Watch Dogs Legion disc apparently shuts down your Xbox for at least what the Xbox thinks is overheating. That's a significant issue. That is actual danger to the hardware that you are running this software on, and that's something that really should be rectified, especially in console world, where you aren't dealing with these kind of multiple configurations that you are on the PC side of things. It's really remarkable that Ubisoft let a copy of the game that does this specific thing out to reviewers so that they can comment on them in things like Eurogamer, which is going to have a significant effect on sales, at least on the margin. Ubisoft is currently working to rectify the matter. They gave this quote to Eurogamer. "We are aware of this issue, and there will be a hotfix due to be released on 30 October, which should help," the company said in an official statement. Now, note a couple things about that. We talk about corporate messaging in this space. We're aware of the issue. That suggests that it's real. It doesn't rely solely on Eurogamer telling you this or that they have anecdotally heard it from others. We're aware of the issue. There's a hotfix due to be released on Friday, which is the release date of the game. Won't necessarily make it, but we're scheduled to try to get it out, and we won't guarantee that that actually fixes it, right? Eurogamer reports it as working to rectify the matter. Apparently, the Ubisoft quote is, "which should help," which, if you're in corporate messaging, if you're looking at this from a legal promises kind of standpoint, says almost nothing. We're trying to get something done by the release date of the game, which should help, we think. We don't know. Obviously, they can't make promises for something that doesn't exist yet. So from the Ubisoft side of things, if you want to step into their shoes, we don't know whether it will fix things when this thing actually goes out the door, hopefully on Friday. So this is all that we can say. But it's a significant issue. And this caused Eurogamer to not review the game. Given the issues we've had and the imminence of a fix, they hope, we'll be holding off posting until we've been able to experience more of the game and when we can verify that the forthcoming hotfix works. Now, that's interesting in and of itself, but what really matters to folks that really are concerned about these kinds of issues is not just that this is a game-breaking bug, but the nature of the bug, right? This is a bug that apparently actually afflicts the hardware itself, that the Xbox thinks something is wrong, that it's overheating, that it's being overused in some fashion. And that's when, if you are invested in your game ecosystem or your hardware, as you undoubtedly are, since you've spent hundreds of dollars on it, you start to get worried, right? And that worry is justified. As we talked about earlier in this video, we have discussed the Ubisoft terms of service. There were a number of people that were concerned about language in the terms of service that really didn't do what they said it was going to do. It really wasn't as problematic as one might have thought. I titled this in the thumbnail, "No, Ubisoft won't own your soul," but they could certainly have said that more clearly in their terms of service. But what we're talking about today is something a little bit different. This is actual potential damage to your console. So we go and we look at those terms of service. Now, the first thing that we do when we look at these terms is we make sure we're using the right definition, right? So the terms govern your use of our games, downloadable content, season passes, game software, other software products, etc., 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 which all the foregoing are provided to you collectively are capital S services. So even though you might not think of Watch Dogs Legion as a capital S service, that's how that term is defined for purposes of this terms of use, terms of service document. So when we see that capital S, we are talking about Watch Dogs Legion. Now we go down to what they represent and warrant, what they promise about how the actual game will operate on your system, or more precisely, what they don't promise. Now, before we dive in here, and everybody panics because you look at this, and I'm going to tell you that this is a problem if it hurts your Xbox, you should understand that Ubisoft isn't acting outside of industry norms here. This is very normal for the terms of service, terms of use, end user license agreement, whatever it might be called, that you sign, that you accept, that you click through when you license a video game. This first line, you expressly acknowledge that use of the services, your playing of Watch Dogs Legion, is at your own risk and is supplied on an as-is or as-available basis. We make no promises about what this thing does, that it will function, that it will do what it says on the back of the box. You take these services, this game, at your own risk. So at its top line level, it says, hey, if anything happens based on your playing of this game, we don't owe you a thing for that. Now, some folks will come into the comments to this video and say, hey, my jurisdiction bans these kinds of disclaimers on representations and warranties, these limitations of liability. Absolutely. Some jurisdictions do, most notably Australia. Some places in the European Union look at consumer law differently than places in the United States. As I have said in prior videos, I am a United States attorney, so I can only talk about contract here. And in general, the freedom of contract, the ability of two parties, here Ubisoft and the end user, the game player, to agree on terms like this is going to be abided by the judiciary here in the United States. And I know a number of you are going to come and say, that's unfair, we're not negotiating these are contracts of adhesion. I agree with you. One of the reasons I make these videos is to point out the places that consumers should actually be concerned, that there should be articles written about what these kinds of terms do. And no more is this a bigger issue than when the actual hardware, something in physical reality, is potentially going to be damaged or start a fire or something along those lines. But we continue. We do not guarantee and make no commitment or warranty concerning the use of the services or the results of the use of the services in terms of conformity, accuracy, completeness, reliability, security, availability, etc. We don't tell you anything about whether this game will work. In addition, we offer no guarantee that the services will be secure, free of interruption or errors, bugs, viruses, or harmful elements, or that errors, bugs, viruses, or harmful elements will be corrected. Hey, this thing could do all manner of bad things. Maybe it's a Trojan horse. Maybe it's a backdoor into your internet network. What's most important here is that you bought Watch Dogs Legions, and if it creates problems for you in your real life or in your internet life, that's not our fault. You can't come back and sue us. We hope. Now, I just highlighted this because in case you were wondering, yes, even these corporations are humans. They make mistakes. We do not offer any warranties. Doe, a deer, a female deer. And so you see that there are typo errors even in documents that are as closely vetted as this one. You will bear all costs and all risks associated with the use of the services. In addition, you will bear the whole cost of any maintenance, repair, or correction required. You will bear all risks associated with time and effort lost, loss of data, particularly any game data if you lose your save, errors, or loss of commercial or other information resulting from the use of the services. The cost to fix this, if we burn down your Xbox or potentially your house, is on you. You bought Watch Dogs Legions. We're not giving you any representations or warranties of how it operates. And so when you have a problem like what is described in Eurogamer, that's when my red flags go up. That's when I say, oh, this is a normal piece of the terms of service, but on the working assumption that your video game's really worst case scenario is that it doesn't work, that it's got bugs, that doesn't make the game player happy. Not that it starts affecting the system, not that it starts burning out CPUs or potentially worse. In no case may Ubisoft be held responsible for any direct, indirect, accidental, incidental, or other damages resulting from the use or impossibility of using the services. We will not be held responsible for anything that arises out of your use of Watch Dogs Legion, even if it creates actual problems in your real life. Regardless of the above, the provisions of this section in no event limit our liability to you in the event of fraudulent statements, if we directly lied, which is a very difficult thing to prove, or death or physical injury resulting from our negligence. Now, if it burns down your house, if somebody is actually hurt or, God forbid, killed, then you can start to have a claim against Ubisoft. But even then, you have to show that they were negligent. And while that might seem easy, when the game burns down the house, you're going to have to prove that it burned down the house first, that that was the causal or proximate cause of the injury or death, and then that Ubisoft did the wrong thing in releasing the game in this state when maybe you were doing something that contributed to the fiery explosion that your Xbox became, right? So what they say here is, yes, we know that we can't just get out of damages for our lies, for our fraud, and we can't really get out of damages for death or physical injury, but everything else that might happen, we get out of, and that's just it. Now, you see in this last paragraph, hey, some jurisdictions don't allow this, and for those jurisdictions, we are only saying this to the maximum amount allowed by law, but that's not going to do you a lot of good if Watch Dogs Legions kills your Xbox One X, or, again, God forbid, if you get a next-generation system and this isn't fixed and that next-generation system has an issue, you wind up getting a pre-order for an Xbox Series X, and then it's bricked by Watch Dogs Legions. There are going to be some unhappy people. And unhappy people is really the best case scenario for Ubisoft if they don't get this fixed, which isn't to say that they won't get it fixed. They seem to think that they can get something done by Friday. I would certainly hope so. This seems like a very unusual set of affairs. And maybe this is a wrong kind of Xbox warning, that there really isn't an overheating error and Ubisoft doesn't quite know what's going on. Hopefully that is in fact the case. But absent that, even though we say these terms of service are normal, and they undoubtedly are, you still have to look out for those instances like this one, where something like a video game, a piece of software, could actually harm something in the real world, cost you your Xbox or something worse, and you wouldn't necessarily have a claim against Ubisoft because of what they put directly in their contract. If you like this, please like, subscribe, share. Tell folks that we're here in Virtual Legality. As I mentioned at the top of this video, we are very close to the 2nd anniversary of this series. We're very excited about that and in growing the channel, getting more subscribers. So please, if you can help us out with that, we very much appreciate it. Every single little bit helps. Otherwise, if you caught this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. And if you listen to it as a podcast, thank you so much for listening. And I will catch you on the very next episode of Virtual Legality. Virtual Legality is a YouTube video series with audio podcast versions presented as commentary and for education and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have legal questions about the topics discussed, please consult your own legal counsel.